Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Happy New Year. It is 2023 as you guys are listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
We're still in 2022 here in actual time, but
Yeah.
hopefully the next year is looking bright for you guys.
Hopefully you made some good resolutions. Hopefully you had fun New
Yeah.
Year's plans. Don't know what mine are yet, but I hope they're fun.
Yes. I always love a new year. I think I talk about this every year now since we've done this podcast. But I love a new year. I love a fresh start. I love a new planner. I mean, picking out your planner for the year is like a big,
Mm-hmm. You got to have a
it's a
good one.
thing. Yeah, you got to have a good planner. I switched it up last year, and for the first time in I don't know, 8 years, I got a different planner and I really liked it.
Like
Which
a
of course
different
now
brand or just a different style?
a whole new brand, new style.
Wow.
Yeah,
Look
it's
at
a lot for
you.
me. I know, but now I'm gonna need to find that planner for the rest of my life until
Yeah.
it is discontinued, like I do.
You'll have to let me know what brand. I use the same brand like a different design, but same brand because
Yep, that's what I did for so long, and then I was like, I'm gonna switch it up and try something because I was using a planner that fit well for school, so like having like week out like this.
mm-hmm.
But I really like the one that I have now. I like the layout of it a little bit better, and it has like
Yeah.
week's priorities. So like for the podcast, I can do like what I'm researching that week and like what I'm editing
Oh
that
yeah, mine
week,
has
and
something like that. Like your top three to
yeah,
do,
yeah.
and then also has like what are you grateful for? And I'm always like, I'm not filling this shit out.
Like I just do my weekly perk of the week. That's good enough. That's
Yeah, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I've been thinking about my goals for next year. It's kind of hard when you like reach a point in your life where you're like, I'm
I'm just
good. Like
trying to
I not
survive.
like I'm
I'm
good, but
just
like
trying to survive the next year. That's
exactly
always my goal.
like I'm not looking to add anything new. Like I'm busy enough. I'm like in the weeds of like so many different things that I'm like, what are my goals, you know?
To just be grateful every day.
One
Find
goal done. Check.
one, there you go. You just have to every day say one thing you're grateful for before you go to sleep. Because
Beautiful.
that's at the point we're in our lives where you just gotta,
Yeah.
you've kind of
Appreciate what you
like,
have.
yeah, you've like planted all the seeds of your life, like at our age, like we're hitting our
That is
30s.
beautiful, Courtney.
Thank
I
you,
love
but
that.
like,
Wow.
like we're married, like we know where our families want to go, like what we want, like
Hmm.
you have a kid, like what you want in the future.
Yeah.
You're solid in your career at this point. So you planted all those seeds and now you just got to water them and help them grow. So you got to be grateful. You got to, take time in your marriage, take time with your kid, your career. You just got to water your
Wow.
garden of life.
This is lovely. I did
I'm
not
starting.
expect.
I didn't either. When I started talking today, I didn't expect it to go here, but 2023 Courtney she's coming in. She's ready.
She is on it. I am loving this. Wow.
Can
What?
you tell I'm listening to a lot of self-help podcasts?
Oh God, I lost my headphone
Again.
Your Glennon Doyle is showing, and I love
Yeah,
it.
it is.
Yeah,
So
that was delightful. What a way. There's no better way we could have started the first podcast episode of this year. I mean, you just
no.
knocked it out of the park with that one.
And I think sometimes also with like resolutions, like we put ourselves at too high of standards. Like we're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're gonna be debt free and we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
run 500,000 miles and we're gonna lose 50 pounds and we're gonna do all this stuff. And it's like, let's just be gentle on ourselves
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, just, I don't
Like, I
know.
think it's okay to have goals. I think it's okay to have like specific, because like I always try to do like here we go, getting into Jaclyn's brain again. But like I'll have like two, so I'll have my like one list, which would be something like, be grateful every day, or
Mm-hmm.
like I had one there was like, if it takes less than 5 minutes to clean it up, just clean it up now. Like little things like that. But then I'll also
Mm-hmm.
have like my specific goals that are like money related, like get X amount in savings or pay X amount of debt off, or um, stuff like that, where I'll do stuff like work out this many days a week, read this many books a year, like some of those like specific goals that I'll set for myself. But I try to like really think about it and make sure that I'm doing a reasonable but slightly
Mm-hmm.
challenging goal. That's where I try to fall. Like I don't want
Yeah.
something that's like, oh, read 20 books this year, because I know I'm going to read 20 books that year. So what can I like make it a little challenging, but not so much that I can't achieve it? find that sweet
Yeah.
spot, you know?
You got to find that sweet spot. Cause I feel like all the time we're like 2023, like next year, I'm going to like I'm going to eat healthy every single day except one cheat meal a month. And I'm going to work out every single day. I'm going to do this and this. And then life happens where your work sends you to Kentucky for 3 days and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, you know, like it just,
Yeah.
you got to just be gentle on ourselves, you know, cause we can have goals and we can try to meet them, but don't beat yourself up if you don't make it. And you know what? If your goal is like, I want to lose weight, and then you start off 2 weeks really good, and then you have a weekend where you just kind of fall off, don't say it's over. You just get back on.
Exactly.
It's consistency. It's just, you know, it's not a start over. You just keep going because that's life. Like sometimes people come into town and you're like, I'm not going to eat a salad for 4 days while my whole family's in town. I'm just not gonna
Exactly.
do it.
You know, and you try to do things that are manageable, and you try to do things that, like you said, if you have an off day, it's okay. Like you're not going to set a goal to work out every single 365 days this year. I'm going to exercise. That's not realistic.
That's why I
like,
hate the 75 hard, because there's so many like rules, and it's like I was an ounce low on my water today, and so all the progress I've made, like I know they say it's like a mental challenge, but it's like it's just so all or nothing. So it's like, oh, I'm 1 ounce below, and so all my progress is gone. Like
start all over. I'm mentally challenged enough as it is. I don't need to add another mental challenge. Okay.
Like, do they know how challenging it is to wake up in this brain every single day?
Exactly. Like,
and make it seem like I'm okay.
Exactly. We are challenged enough. We don't need any additional mental challenges. That's enough of that. Yeah. All right. Oh, so now that we've gotten into your inspirational, I hope you guys took something out of that.
We're preaching this morning. It is a Sunday morning. We are preaching.
Yes, baby. Do you guys want this inspirational podcast? Is this what you guys want for Patreon? We do these once a month, and we just like.
Do you want like a mini episode once a month where we just like spout, like a little bonus once a month where we just spout inspirational shit? Because that'd be easy, because we don't have to do any research. We just sit here and just bullshit like we just did.
Perfect. I love it. We shout our affirmations. We just like putting in the work. We're doing the stuff, you know. Yeah. So now that we've gotten the fun part out,
now that we've been inspirational, let's just drag you straight down. If you want to leave now, I understand.
Yeah, you got listen to our first part, skip to the perk of the week. You don't need the in between. So if you guys saw from the title, we are doing the trash bag murderer, which there is very little information out there about. I was only able to find one book, which I did not read because the reviews, basically it sounded like this guy couldn't even put together a sentence. There were so many like spelling and grammar errors that I'm like, if you can't spell check, I don't really trust you to fact check. So I don't really think that's going to be the best source for this book. So we did use Wikipedia. We do not usually do that. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer on there that some of this information did come straight from Wikipedia, because we were not able to access the sources that Wikipedia lists to like verify that. So just take it for what you will. But I did feel like it was important to cover this one because there are so many victims, and we do have a lot of victims' names. We apologize if there is any incorrect information on names, pronunciations, spelling, dates, any of those things. We are doing the best we can with the limited information that we have. So just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. Did use Wikipedia, Murderpedia, and all that's interesting. Also want to give a trigger warning for rape at the beginning of this episode. So as I said, there is very little information available about the victims of the serial killer Patrick Wayne Kearney, aka the trash bag murderer. So Kearney murdered at least 21 boys in Southern California from 1962 to 1977. So what do we know about the serial killer and the victims whose lives were taken by him? We're going to tell you a little bit more. So Patrick Wayne Kearney was born on September 24th, 1939, to a pretty stable middle-class background with 2 older brothers in Texas. He was a very thin and sickly child, so he was bullied a lot, and many of his bullies taunted him for being gay, although Kearney did maintain that he was straight at the time. But overall had a pretty normal childhood, normal family that was pretty well off, not those crazy red flags that you normally hear about for serial killers. At the age of 13, his father taught him to slaughter pigs by shooting them behind the ear with a pistol. Again, I don't think that's too I mean, they're killing them to eat. They're not torturing them. They're shooting them directly behind the ear to kill them to eat them. I don't feel like that's
not really, that happens a lot, like on a farm.
Yeah,
like you're in Texas.
exactly.
It's the late 40s, early 50s. Like you don't have just Walmarts and Amazon. So like,
Exactly.
yeah, you're going to raise pigs and then kill them. Like,
yeah.
to eat them.
And again, his father wasn't teaching him to torture them. I mean, he wasn't literally just shooting them directly behind the ear.
I mean, my mom always talks about how, her grandmother, used to have to like grab the chicken, cut its head off and be like, that's it. There you go. That's how we eat. Like,
that's dinner. Exactly. Yep. However, Kearney was a little bit too drawn to this activity, and then started killing pigs that weren't due to be slaughtered. So he just took that and ran with it. Just went a little too far.
Yeah, he was like, I'll go shoot the pig. And it's like, why are you so eager? No one wants to do this job.
Yeah, exactly. He also supposedly rolled around in pig intestines after killing them. And he did have fantasies early on of killing those who made fun of him. He reported fantasizing about skinning them alive. At one point, he began engaging in bestiality, including with the family dog.
Nope.
So we're just going downhill real fast here for Patrick. He did marry a woman after high school, but the marriage didn't last for very long. So after his divorce, Patrick Kearney did join the Air Force, which is where he met David Hill. Hill was married at the time, but that did not stop him from starting an affair with Kearney. And they did move to California together after Kearney was discharged from the military. Then they started arguing a lot, and then Hill moved back in with his wife. So Kearney started working as an engineer for Hughes Aircraft, and without his boyfriend there, Kearney started frequenting gay bars in Southern California and Mexico and picking up other men. So in 1962, Kearney picked up a 19-year-old hitchhiker on his motorcycle and drove him to a secluded spot in Indo, California, where he shot him behind the ear the same way his father taught him to slaughter pigs. He then raped the victim after he was dead. Kearney would later confess to this murder, although he was never charged for it, and it is unknown what the victim's name was or if he was ever found. So, unfortunately, not a lot of information about who this person was, even a name, or if his remains were ever found. But after Kearney realized that the young boy's cousin had witnessed him picking him up on his motorcycle, he realized he needed to kill the cousin too so that he wouldn't turn him in. So then Kearney returned to the same spot, picked up the cousin on his motorcycle, which I guess he didn't think was suspicious that like his cousin wasn't there, because it's like, oh, it's just a motorcycle. It's not like a car. It's like, oh, he dropped him off wherever and then he came back and picked up the cousin,
Yeah.
He did kill and rape this boy in the same manner as the first boy. And later that year, Kearney picked up another unknown teenager off the street and murdered him as well. In 1963, David Hill left his wife and returned to Patrick Kearney, and they moved into a house together in Culver City, California. In 1967, the couple went to visit one of Hill's friends in Tijuana, Mexico, and one source says that Kearney snuck into the man's room and shot him between the eyes with a pistol, but another says he lured him back to his own house in his vehicle. So he shot the man, not quite sure which home he shot him in. But both of the sources do say he dragged the man's body to the bathtub where he raped it and began dismembering it with an X-Acto knife. He also removed the bullet from the man's skull and then buried the body behind the garage. So Kearney did not kill for a few years after this because he was afraid police would be looking for this man and would connect him to Kearney, because it wasn't a stranger like the others. Like, it was someone that they were visiting. And although his identity is unknown, some sources use the first name George. It is used in quotes, so I don't know if it's like a John Doe type thing that they just gave him the name George. But there's no distinctive information about this man either.
How sad.
Yeah, it's just like the Green River Killer all over again, where it's so many victims who are reduced to just their names or not even their names because they just have no idea who these people were.
Yeah.
So Hill left Kearney again in 1971, and Kearney returned to looking for boys on the street. So he developed a pattern and would pick up hitchhikers, men from bars, sex workers, and children as young as 8. Most of Kearney's victims were gay, and he did travel around Southern California and Tijuana, Mexico, where he would use his fluent Spanish and love of Latin American culture to connect with the transient people that he met. Like, he's like, oh, we have these interests in common. Like, let's be friends. Let me give you a ride. And he did often target those who resembled the children who had bullied him when he was younger. So again, he has a lot of unresolved trauma, and he is seeking out these people for specific reasons. So again, he developed this like pattern. So after getting the men in the car, he would drive with his left hand and like maintain the speed limit because he didn't want to get pulled over. And then once they were like far enough away from civilization, he would shoot them with his right hand, but then he would leave them sitting in the passenger seat until they reached a more remote location. So he didn't wait until they got to the remote location to shoot them. He just waited until they were like far enough away that no one would hear the gunshot, but then left them sitting there until he reached the remote location.
Which is just cruel. That just shows who you are as a person. Like
exactly. So he again would rape and dismember all of his victims after killing them, and he would place the dismembered body parts in trash bags and leave them all over the area, usually like around the freeways. Sometimes he would drain their bodies of blood and like wash them so they wouldn't have an odor or like no attention drawn to them. And he would later say that he dismembered the bodies out of curiosity and not a means of torture, because he did do it after they were dead. Like, he did not torture them prior to their death. Like, he shot them point blank every single time. And then his experimentation, whatever you want to call it, occurred after their death. He did also admit to beating their bodies because it was like a way to release frustration on those who had bullied him. So again, just taking out his life of bullying on these innocent men.
And I do wonder if this was like today, if he'd had therapy, would that have helped? Yeah. And I do also wonder if the reason we don't know a lot about him and a lot about the victims is because they were gay in the 60s, 70s. So they were like, we're just not going to talk about this. Nobody cares. Like,
exactly. Yeah. It's so sad.
Disgusting.
And although the exact number and many of the names of Kearney's victims are still unknown to this day, there are a few that we have some detailed information about. So 13-year-old John Demichik was murdered on June 26, 1971, and his remains were found on February 9th, 1973, so a couple years later. 17-year-old James Fletcher Barwick was murdered on September 22nd, 1973, and found the same day. Kearney's youngest victim is believed to be 5-year-old Ronald Dean Smith. Ronald disappeared from Lenox, California on August 24th, 1974. His body was discovered in Riverside County on October 12th of that year, and he had been suffocated. 21-year-old Albert Rivera was murdered on April 13th, 1975, and found the same day. 20-year-old Larry Gene Walters was murdered on October 31st, 1975, and found 11 days later. And it was around this time that police began to speculate that they had a serial killer on their hands, because now they have like multiple victims who are being found in trash bags around the same area. Like, this pattern is emerging around the time that they found Larry Gene Walters' body.
Yeah, and 17-year-old Kenneth Eugene Buchanan was murdered on March 1st, 1976, and found 5 weeks later. Oliver Peter Molitor was 13 years old when he was murdered on March 21st, 1976, and his body has never been found. 15-year-old Larry Armendariz was murdered on April 18th, 1976, and found the next day. And on June 16th, 1976, 13-year-old Michael Craig McGee was hitchhiking on Inglewood Avenue trying to get from Lenox to Torrance. Kearney did pick him up, and after chatting for a while, he invited Michael to go camping with him in Lake Elsinore for the weekend. And Michael supposedly spoke about his criminal past and asked about like burglar alarms in Kearney's home. So Kearney claimed he saw Michael as a threat and shot him. His remains have never been found. Kearney later told the police that he disposed of the body and they weren't going to find him. So, unfortunately, he has never been found. 13-year-old John Woods was murdered on June 20th, 1976, and found on June 21st, 1977. So, 17-year-old Larry Epsey was murdered sometime in 1976. We're not really sure when, but he was found on August 23rd of that year. 20-year-old Wilfred Lawrence Faherty was 20 years old when he was murdered in August of 1976. So again, these are all like happening very, very quickly, all in these like very, very close.
Very rapidly.
16-year-old Randall Lawrence Moore was killed in August of 1976, and his remains were found 2 months later. 19-year-old Timothy Brian Ingham was killed on September 15th, 1976, and his body was found 9 days later. 17-year-old Robert Benefiel and 27-year-old David Allen were murdered and found in the fall of 1976. And 20-year-old Mark Andrea Oric was killed on October 5th, 1976, and he was found the next day. And 28-year-old Nicholas Hernandez Jimenez was murdered in January of 1977. 24-year-old Arturo Ramos Marquez was killed around February of 1977 and found on March 3rd of that year. So police knew that many of the men who had been killed were gay and part of the local LGBT community.
Which, like you said, makes you wonder, is that why there were not more? Which, I mean, there's such little information, so we don't know what efforts were taken, but...
And it makes me think
would
of
they have
the
found him
Eli
sooner?
Stutzman case where, like a lot of people knew, like maybe kind of had an idea of what happened or who like the victims had last been seen with, but they were like, but if I go to the police, I have to out myself.
Exactly.
And that's not very safe in this community. So it's kind of like,
Exactly.
So in March of 1977, David Hill met 17-year-old John Otis LeMay at the gym and invited him to the house he shared with Kearney. So at 5:30 p.m. on March 13th, John told a neighbor he was going to Redondo Beach to meet up with a man named Dave that he had met at the gym. And so when he arrived at Hill and Kearney's house, Hill wasn't home, but Kearney invited him in to watch TV. Kearney then grabbed his pistol and shot LeMay in the back of the head and dismembered his body and left it in the desert. John's body was found on March 18th. 8-year-old Merle Hondo Chance disappeared from Venice on April 7th, 1977, while riding his bicycle near Kearney's place of employment. So Kearney kidnapped him, smothered him, and took his body home with him for the night before disposing of it in the Angeles National Forest. His body was found on May 26, 1977, and he is Kearney's last known victim. So police later learned that John LeMay had been seen hanging out with Kearney and Hill, and they went to their home to speak with them, but the two had fled to El Paso, Texas. So Kearney and Hill's families urged them to turn themselves in, and they eventually did. So Kearney and Hill were originally only charged with the murders of John LeMay and Hondo Chance, but Kearney confessed to more murders at the time and led police to 6 different sites where he had buried victims. And 12 bodies were uncovered at those 6 sites. So quite a few bodies they're finding here. They're like, yeah, we have something way bigger on our hands here.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that they turned themselves in and then they're like, okay, we're charging with these 2. And he's like, oh, there's actually a bunch more. Just confess to them.
And at their apartment, police found a bloody hacksaw as well as blood and hair that they were believed to be a match to LeMay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because the article said that matched LeMay, but I'm like, this was the 70s, so you didn't have DNA, so it's you had the same type, and with hair it was the same, was a texture and those things that I was they said it was a match then, but I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't a DNA match.
Yeah, it's in 1970s terms, it was a match, which wasn't very thorough.
but thankfully, Kearney made a full confession, and that's very detailed.
We don't have to worry
confession.
about it.
Yeah.
So on July 14th, 1977, Kearney was indicted on the 2 counts of murder, and David Hill was released as Kearney made a full confession and said Hill never participated in the murders, which can you imagine just being oh, my boyfriend has killed all of these people. Oh.
Yeah. So I'm I do wonder
what he knew.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he fled too. He fled with him. So I'm did you think y'all were just going on a vacation to El Paso? What?
Because that's my thing too. Is it did he know all along? Or was it with the LeMay, he was by the way, that guy you met at the gym came over. Did Hill discover the bloody hacksaw or the blood and hair? And then Kearney was by the way, I did all this shit. And he's okay, let's go. We gotta leave. Or did he know all along? Because I feel I'm how did you not know all along? But we hear so often with serial killers, their wives being like, didn't realize a thing. So
And like the articles did say that like Kearney would go out most frequently like when he was arguing with Hill. So like when they were fighting, that's when he was like going out and picking up these men. So it's like, okay, I can maybe see, but the fleeing thing really was like, okay, why would you run away with him if you didn't know more than
unless like at that point Kearney just like told him everything and he somehow stood by his side and was like, all right, let's go. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So Kearney detailed 28 to 35 murders. Sources do differ, like how many he did detail. But he told police that killing excited him and gave him a sense of dominance. And he agreed to plead guilty to 3 counts of murder and receive 3 life sentences in exchange for the death penalty. He was later charged with 18 other murders and pled guilty to those as well, receiving an additional 18 life sentences. So at this moment, we have like 21 life sentences. So he's gone. He's not. That's a lot of appeals if he's trying to get out.
Yeah, for sure.
While police believe he committed the other murders he confessed to, they didn't have enough evidence to charge him. And Hill was eventually cleared and never charged in any of the murders. And again, is that he knew, didn't participate, or there was no evidence? I'm not sure his full part in all of this.
Yeah.
So. A local grocery store owner later said that Kearney would frequently purchase butcher knives from him, asking about the quality of the steel. And he detailed Kearney as a loner with an eerie sense of quiet about him. And a psychiatrist who interviewed him in prison said he had an IQ of 180. So he's like very smart, but like a loner and obviously a murderer. So.
Yeah. I mean, like he was like an engineer, like he was a very intelligent person, but it's like, what happened? I don't think it was just the bullying. Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, there's something else going on here. So Patrick Wayne Kearney is 83 years old today and is currently incarcerated at Mole Creek State Prison. And he is known both as the trash bag murderer and sometimes the freeway killer, but we do have multiple killers known as the freeway killer. So it's kind of hard to say like, oh, the freeway killer, it's him, when it's like, well, it's also like 5 other serial killers.
Yeah.
And that's the horrific murders of countless men. Who knows how many more victims that we just don't know about, by Patrick Wayne Kearney.
Yep. And like you said, mostly members of the LGBT community, and police were aware of that. So it's like, could this have been solved sooner if there was more manpower into finding out, who was murdering these men. And this is like the same time frame as Bundy. And it's like, look at how much coverage there is about Bundy. But then you have these
even the Green River killer, I feel like had more press. I mean, they still didn't view it as not as highly, that sounds bad, but as the Ted Bundy, but it's like, this is happening at the same time.
Yeah, the one article I found that had like not detailed information, but that was like a lengthy article that was outside of just like, oh, Patrick Wayne Kearney arrested for list of names, was like detailing or like going into, are homosexuals more likely to be violent than heterosexuals? Like this was written in like the 70s. And it was like interviewing like psychiatrists and psychologists, and like the general consensus is that no, although some said yes, especially they said in like gay relationships, because you have 2 men, so there's more likely to be aggression when you have 2 men versus a man and just a measly woman. It just was so absurd.
I think this goes back to not, is it a homosexual more?
It's a man issue.
It's a man issue. Like, yeah, like the 2 men are more violent because the men are the ones that are more violent. Like, what?
Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with their sexuality. But yeah, just crazy that like the one
in this time, I don't think sexuality would make you more violent, but being discriminated against and the bullying that comes from your sexuality could lead to it. So it's not.
Yeah, they did mention that.
Yeah, it's more like people not being understanding and just being like, hey, do what you want, which is what we should do. Like,
yeah, they did mention that too, of like, people in the gay community may be more likely to harm others because of like the treatment that they have received. Again, going back to Kearney being bullied when he was younger for being gay, for being this like thin, sickly, like child, so yeah, just absolutely horrific, and so sad that there's not a lot of information out there about these victims and who they were. And again, very strange that it's occurring at the same time as these other huge serial killers who have received all of this attention. And like Wayne Kearney, like how many people know that name? Like it's not.
I never heard of him or this whole case, and he killed a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that is so sad and awful. Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is just a little detail into my household. Kevin and I always have a 30-minute show and an hour-long show, and we alternate who gets to pick which, basically. So this was his turn to pick the 30-minute show, and he picked Entourage, which at first I was like, am I going to like this? I don't know. And like the first season, it was good, but I was like, whatever. But now like we're in season 3 and it's really good and I can't stop watching it.
Nice.
I was scared it was going to be a little too like bro-y, like too like, oh, like these 4 guys like in Hollywood, whatever. But
yeah,
I've really grown to like love the characters, and now I'm the one being like, let's just do one more episode. Let's just do one more episode, because they're so short, and they're like 22 minutes, and they always kind of end like on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I'm like, let's just go to the next one. Let's just keep going. So
the 30-minute shows are so easy to just like next episode, next episode. And you're like, where did 5 hours go? I don't know.
I know, that's the thing, is like we've been on The Sopranos for like months now, not because it's not good. It's just more of a time chunk that we don't have all the time. Like we'll do Sopranos nights and make like bake ziti and drink wine and just watch a bunch of them, but it's so much easier like on our lunch breaks just to put on a 30-minute show, and like you just soar through them. So that's my perk of the week, because I was a little hesitant about it. I think Kevin was too. He didn't know how I would like it. And there's still moments that like made me roll my eyes, but it's still I really like it overall. I think it's a good show.
Nice.
But that's my perk of the week. Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that this week Andrew planned a date night for us, which is really nice. Like took care of like the baby sitter himself. Like he told me we were doing a date night. He wouldn't spring it on me last minute because no.
That would not work with Jaclyn.
That's the thing, like, because Andrew's like, well, I know you hate surprises. I'm like, I don't hate surprises. I hate like you can keep the details from me. That's fine. Like, just tell me I'm going to have to leave my house this day and time. That's all I need to know. Like,
I mean, that is true. Like, sometimes you do have to like hype yourself up for leaving the house.
Exactly. Like, especially like on a Friday night. Like, yes, exactly. So I'm like, I just need to know, So he's like, do you want to do this Friday or next Friday? And so I was like, I don't care. Let's just do this Friday. So he like reached out to the babysitter, took care of the planning, made all the plans, and took me to this super cool place in Richmond. It's called Hotel Green, and like it is an actual hotel, but like they also turned like the first floor into an indoor golf course. So you have like, this little like putt course through like the hallways and like bedrooms and bathrooms and like little like libraries, and it is just so cool. It's just like such a cool concept. Super neat. We also had dinner reservations at this really nice restaurant that we did not get to make because we had to wait too long at the putt place. So like we ordered, like we got drinks because they had like food and drinks and everything there. So you like sit in like the lounge area and like wait like to be called. So like it was pretty cool. So we got drinks and we got like a little charcuterie board. And then by the time like we finished that and we're like, we have like 20 minutes until we need to leave, and we hadn't even started the course yet. So we're like, okay, so do we want to do this or do we want to do the restaurant? And so, we talked about it, and then we decided to do the putt. So we canceled our dinner reservations and had sandwiches at the sandwich place at like 9:30. So, it was fine. It was a good time. But yeah, it was such a neat concept and something I'd never like heard of before.
Yeah,
and
that's super cool.
Yeah, because he was like, it told me we were doing something different, and I was like, oh, okay, and then we get there and I'm like, what the hell is this? Because like you can't even see, like you just see like the inside of like a hotel lobby. Like, why are we at a hotel?
You were like, I am not staying the night away from my child. What are you talking about?
Sir, I did not agree to this. I did not pack a bag.
Take me home.
I'm like, we just get a quickie at this hotel. Like we could just like do that during nap time. I don't understand what's happening. So yeah, but yeah, it was fun and it was nice. And it's always nice when your partner takes the initiative to like plan something. So all I had to do was get dressed and get in the car,
Yeah.
So that's always nice too. So yeah, that was my perk of the week. If you guys want to tell us about your shows, your date nights, all that good stuff.
If you've heard of this serial killer.
Yes, definitely. Are you guys familiar with him? Do you guys know of any other sources, documentaries, books, anything that has covered this person, because all I could find were like 3-minute YouTube clips on like people like us covering it. So yeah, but you could do so on caffeinatedcrimespod at gmail. Nope. Well, yeah, caffeinatedcrimespod at gmail.com. Not what I meant to say, but we are there. We are on caffeinated. No,
we're on Caffeinated Crimes.
We are on Instagram at Caffeinated Crimes Pod. We are on Twitter at Caff Crimes Pod. That's CAFF Crimes Pod. We are on Facebook at Caffeinated Crimes Podcast, and we are on Patreon at patreon.com/caffeinated crimes, where you get all of your part 2 episodes same day. You get ad-free episodes. You get a bonus episode once a month. We have pins, stickers, hangouts, gifts, all kinds of cool little fun perks, video episodes. If you guys want to see us talking and hear our unedited bullshit, it's all there for you.
It's there. And if you feel so inclined to give us 5 stars on Apple or Spotify or wherever there's a rating system and you can give us the highest one of them, please do so. YouTube, you can subscribe and like our videos. Please don't down thumb it, please up thumb it. That makes us sad versus happy. But yeah, in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee
and don't commit a crime.